Hi, good evening, everyone. It really is my esteemed pleasure to introduce to you today our amazing speaker, Kim Watkins. It's not hard at all to say who she is. I love her passion and her tenacity for justice. I appreciate her integrity, and she walks the talk. Okay, actually she runs the talk. Anyone who knows Kim knows that she is one of the trainers for the road runners, the marathon runners, too. And one of the plights that she really stands on, the foundation, I would say, is that she's devoted to serving the people who work the hardest, but who have been forsaken the most. And she has been a pioneer for school nurses over the last 2 years, especially. I had the pleasure of meeting her through one of my dear colleagues, Supervisor Mary Lawson. What can I say? Well, she will be our next Manhattan Borough President if we all do what we're supposed to do. That's on the line tonight. And tonight, what you're going to do, you're going to understand why do public school moms run for office in the first place? Well, she's going to answer that question. And she's also going to answer what are her priorities, along with how do we correct the failures of New York politicians. Let's really give our support tonight, our ear, and if on all our questions to Kim, but more than that, our support for her. So let's give a round of applause for our amazing Kim Watkins. Kim, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Everything that you've done, not only for nurses, but for educators and for the school system, being our CC3 president. We appreciate you so much. And we thank you for all that you're going to do. I know unequivocally that you are the one for the Manhattan Borough President. Let's give our attention to Kim tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Ponzella. That was such a lovely welcome. And thank you everyone for being here tonight. I want to jump right in and respect everyone's time. And yeah, I'm going to start out with my why. Why would a public school mom, a marathon running coach, and a small business owner take on the establishment, run for office for the very first time, and run against such established elected officials? And the reason is pretty simple. I don't trust government anymore. I don't trust the politicians who are running our government anymore. As a parent leader in the public school system, I have had a front row seat to the broken promises, the cronyism, and the backroom deals, the fiscal injustices. And the best story that highlights my why is the 2016 Upper West Side Elementary School rezoning. It was historic in its scope and in its purpose to alleviate overcrowding and tackle segregation. Our compass was community involvement and data and facts, and we worked on it for 2 years. But local politicians opposed it. They fought us on it. They ignored the evidence and instead chose to appease political interest groups. And they convinced the mayor to pull the deal off the table, which he did. It was only after parent leaders sent a letter outlining, laying out the case for the rezoning in the press, that we were able to move the plan forward. I'm running for Manhattan Borough President because we need to elect leaders who we can trust to make decisions based on what is right, based on evidence, and based on community involvement. And that is how I lead. And you have my word that I will work with you to produce a stronger Manhattan moving forward. I want to talk about the issues and my priorities. There are so many issues, and a lot of them are in your questions as well. But I want to start out by talking a little bit about the economy and the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. I want to talk about affordable housing and of course, public schools. I want to talk a little bit about climate change, and I want to talk about intersectional issues of institutional racism and budget justice and fiscal responsibility. The pandemic triggered a devastating economic collapse in Manhattan, and we're going to and we're going to be involved in it for years to come. The next borough president has to be ready with the initiatives on day one that will rejuvenate Manhattan and get it back to work. From a conduit for entrepreneurs to launch businesses without a ton of red tape, to pop-up shops and street fairs and free transit and cultural events and music festivals. We need tourism back. Tourism generates tens of billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of jobs every year in New York. And we have to make those a top priority. They match my non-political business background as well. So I'm really excited to get Manhattan back to business. But this is also an issue of public safety. And we need to be honest about what has been happening in our day-to-day existence recently. Homeless actually has been on the rise for a decade. It's doubled before the pandemic. And questionable decisions have been made about our homelessness in New York City since the pandemic. We also have questions of increased crime. Gun violence and theft are up in New York City. Some neighborhoods are already developing solutions, and I'm really proud of some of the work that I've been doing in Harlem, where I live, on block cleanup and working with some of the community leaders who are hiring high school students to help clean up uptown parks. From youth employment and more after-school programming to other initiatives like the Guardian Angels, Auxiliary Police, of which I was one, and many other programs, My Brother's Keeper, to name a few. I want to support and expand programs that unbundle policing from social services. I want to reform the culture of the police department, and I want to make sure that we all stay safe. That's imperative. Now, we also need to talk about affordable housing, because we have really messed up our ability to house New Yorkers at every level except the super wealthy. I have three sort of buckets of ideas in terms of affordable housing. And the first is, it goes back to the homelessness situation, because in lots of other localities and around the world, there's something called housing first, which essentially is where a homeless person's first step is to find a permanent home and then enter a program, social programs that relate to finding a job and social services. We put them through the shelter system, and this transience is part of the reason why we continue to struggle with this issue, in conjunction, of course, with the fact that we have totally missed the mark in terms of developing affordable homes in this city. Second, the borough president has an obligation to pull back the curtain on the crooked land use and rezoning processes. And I give you my word that that will be a top priority for me. We also have to fight for stronger rent regulations and for closing tax loopholes on super wealthy real estate developers. But the third thing that I want to talk about is home ownership, because Manhattan is the lowest in the country at 20% of home ownership. And get this, only 20% of the 20% represents Black and Latinx homeowners in Manhattan. And that is totally unacceptable. We have to build home ownership into our housing stock. And I want to expand programs like HDFC and Mitchell Lama, which are both affordable home ownership programs, and then fast track units for our nurses, our teachers, our firefighters, and our sanitation and other essential workers. Well, on the issue of schools, I could probably talk all night. The DOE spends 1/3 of the city's total budget, $30 billion. It's a government all by itself, the DOE. And I want to give public schools back to the public. And the way I want to do that is in three ways. I want transparency in our budgets and fiscal justice. We have to make sure that our schools have what they need to serve our students. I will continue to advocate and fight alongside students and education advocates for equitable and integrated schools and high-performing schools. And lastly, I want to fight to abolish the mayor's sole control of the public school system. Climate change is another critical issue. 2030 represents the year that global experts estimate that 2/3 of the world's population is going to live in an urban area. New York City's population is going to grow, even if it doesn't seem like it right now. And my 2030 Manhattan Green Plan encompasses a lot of things, but it gets to the heart of a lot of our sustainability issues. And that includes fewer cars and more trees, rainwater runoff programs, and solar energy. It includes the development or redevelopment of our coastal ecosystems. And then amazingly enough, this is also an educational platform and can help create jobs for our city. Now, intersecting with all these issues, with these 4 issues, are what I call weather system issues, because they really do affect everything. And that is institutional racism and fiscal irresponsibility in our government. We have got to be honest about the impact, the legacy of racism embedded in our laws and the policies that we make and act on every day. And we have to face the fact that the cost to operate our New York City government, it's spiraling out of control. When Mayor de Blasio took office in 2014, the budget for the city was about $74 billion. And last year we spent over $100 billion. I don't feel like we've gotten to the place where we could say we spent that money well. I don't think you probably have either. So the borough president, who serves as a coalition builder and a chief advocate for all of these issues and then many more, is someone that we really need to find who we can trust to make decisions based on the work, based on the community building, and based on the evidence that we have. And I will be ready for action on day 1. Join me, and let's forge a new path for the future of Manhattan.